Hello everyone, today Biker with a Heart bring you a story full of humanity and compassion. We hope you enjoy listening.
The desert wind howled like a wounded animal, carrying the faint cries of a child through the cracked asphalt of Route 66's forgotten stretch. It was just past midnight, the kind of hour where the stars hung low and indifferent, mocking the isolation below. In a roadside diner flickering with neon signs that buzzed like dying insects, a small figure huddled in the corner booth. Lily, no more than 10 years old, her tiny frame swallowed by an oversized hoodie that smelled of stale smoke and fear. She had no arms, her shoulders ending in smooth, scarred stubs from a fire that had claimed her family years ago, or so the whispers in town said. But tonight, she wasn't just alone. She was terrified, her wide eyes darting toward the diner's door every time headlights swept the parking lot. A group of rough-looking men, truckers with grease-stained hands and eyes hardened by the road, had cornered her earlier, their laughter booming as they demanded she earn her meal by performing some cruel trick. One had shoved a napkin and a pen toward her, sneering, "Draw us a picture, freak. Show us what a miracle looks like." Her sobs had only fueled their mockery, the pen rolling uselessly to the floor. Outside, the rumble of engines shattered the night's fragile peace, a low, thunderous growl that built like an approaching storm. Ethan Hawk Ramirez, a weathered biker in his late 40s, led the pack. His leather vest, patched with the faded emblem of the Iron Vipers, a coiled serpent promising unyielding loyalty, creaked as he killed the engine of his vintage Harley. Hawk's face was a map of old battles, a jagged scar across his jaw from a wartime ambush in the sands of some distant desert, eyes shadowed by the weight of promises he'd buried deep. He'd lost his own daughter to a similar fire a decade back, a loss that had splintered his soul and driven him to ride with ghosts. Tonight, the Vipers were just passing through on a routine run, 50 strong, their bikes lined up like iron sentinels under the moon's pale glow. But Hawk had spotted the diner's glow from the highway, and something, a prickling instinct honed by years of watching backs, pulled him off course. He strode in first, his boots thudding against the linoleum, the scent of exhaust and worn leather cutting through the greasy air of frying onions. The truckers turned, their jeers faltering as Hawk's shadow loomed. "What's going on here?" His voice was gravel, low and steady, carrying the quiet authority of a man who'd stared down worse than road bullies. Lily's cries hitched, her body curling tighter into the booth. One trucker, a burly man with a beer gut straining his shirt, stepped forward with a smirk. "Just having fun with the kid. She thinks she's an artist or something, without hands. Hilarious, right?" Hawk's gaze flicked to Lily, taking in the fear etched on her dirt-smudged face, the way her shoulders trembled. Memories flooded him. His little girl's laughter echoing in a burning house, the vow he'd made to her fading photo on his dashboard, "I'll always protect the broken ones, kiddo." This wasn't just a stop. It was a reckoning. The other Vipers poured in behind him, a wall of denim and chrome, their presence filling the diner like a gathering thunderhead. No words were needed. The code was etched in their ink and scars. Family chosen, not born, bound by oaths that outlasted blood. Hawk knelt beside Lily, his massive frame gentle as he picked up the fallen pen. "Hey, darling, you all right?" She nodded shakily, tears carving tracks down her cheeks. The truckers shifted uneasily, but Hawk ignored them, his focus on the girl. "You were drawing? Show me." With a trembling nod, Lily leaned forward, using her chin and shoulder to nudge the napkin closer, her movements deliberate, born of a resilience that twisted Hawk's gut. She gripped the pen awkwardly between her teeth, her breath steadying as she began to sketch, lines emerging from memory, not limbs. It was rough, childlike, but profound. A motorcycle convoy tearing through a fiery dawn, riders with faces like guardians pulling a small figure from flames. The diner fell silent, the truckers' bravado evaporating under the weight of what they witnessed. Hawk's throat tightened. The drawing mirrored his own nightmares, his unfulfilled promise to save what he'd lost. "That's impossible," one viper muttered, but Hawk held up a hand. This sketch wasn't just art. It was a mirror to his soul, a call from the past demanding he answer. He stood facing the truckers. "You touch her again, and you'll answer to more than words." They backed off, mumbling apologies, slinking out into the night like shadows fleeing light. Lily looked up at him, her eyes holding a spark of hope amid the exhaustion. "Thank you," she whispered, the pen still clenched in her teeth. Hawk didn't leave it there. He radioed the crew outside, his voice cracking over the static. "Brothers, we've got a mission. This girl's got no one. Fire took her folks, left her like this. We're her family now." The response was immediate. Engines revving in unison, a chorus of loyalty that drowned the desert wind. By dawn, the Vipers would escort her to safety. But Hawk knew this was bigger. A promise reignited, binding them all in a chain of redemption. As the first light kissed the horizon, painting the bikes in golden hues, he helped Lily onto his sled, her drawing tucked safely in his vest. The road ahead stretched endless, but for the first time in years, Hawk felt the weight lift, replaced by purpose. Little did he know, that napkin sketch held secrets that would unravel corruption in their town, drawing the club into a storm of moral fire they couldn't ride away from. What if I told you that one simple act of kindness could shatter the toughest hearts? If this opening gripped you, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Let's ride this story together. The convoy rolled out under the breaking sky, dust swirling in their wake like whispers of old ghosts. Hawk rode point, Lily secured in a sidecar rigged from spare parts, her small form nestled against the vibration of the engine. The scent of warm rubber and sagebrush filled the air, the sun's rays glinting off chrome handlebars like blades of justice. Behind them, the Vipers formed a protective phalanx, men and women who'd traded war zones for highways, their tattoos telling tales of battles won and lost. There was Marcus, Hawk's second-in-command, a former medic whose hands still shook from pulling shrapnel in the field. Lena, the sharp-eyed navigator with a past as a runaway nurse, her loyalty forged in the club's midnight rescues. They weren't outlaws, not really, just guardians of the forgotten, bound by a creed whispered around campfires. Iron binds what blood breaks. As the miles blurred, Lily's story unfolded in fragments, shared over the roar of pipes. She'd been shuffled through foster homes, a ward of a system more interested in paperwork than people. The fire that took her arms and her parents had been ruled accidental, but her memories painted a different picture. Shadows in the night, arguments about money, a match struck too close. "They said I couldn't draw anymore," she murmured, her voice barely audible over the wind. "But I see things. In my head, like movies." Hawk glanced down, his scarred knuckles white on the grips. It echoed his own hauntings, the explosion that stole his squad, the vow to his dying captain. "Look out for the innocents, Hawk. That's our legacy." He'd buried that promise under miles of asphalt, numbing it with the road's endless rhythm. Until now. By midday, they pulled into the outskirts of Eldridge, a dusty town gripped by whispers of scandal. The local sheriff's office loomed like a squat fortress, its windows tinted against prying eyes. Hawk had called ahead to an old contact, a diner owner named Clara, who'd once patched up his crew after a brawl. She met them at the edge of town, her face lined with worry. "That girl's trouble, Ethan. Folks say the fire wasn't natural, tied to some land deal gone sour, developers pushing out families, and the sheriff's in their pocket." Hawk's jaw set, the drawing burning against his chest like a talisman. Corruption here, it smelled like the old wars, where power twisted truth into knots. They settled Lily in Clara's back room, a cozy space smelling of fresh coffee and lavender. The vipers fanned out, scouting the town with the precision of hawks on the hunt. Marcus checked the old fire reports at the library, his medic's eye spotting inconsistencies. Timestamps off, witnesses vanished. Lena sweet-talked a nurse at the local clinic, uncovering hushed tales of other accidents linked to the same developers. But it was Lily's drawing that ignited the spark. As evening fell, the club gathered around the diner table, the napkins spread like a battle map. "Look here," Hawk said, tracing the lines with a calloused finger. "That's not just bikes, it's us and the flames. They match the warehouse blaze from 5 years back, the one that killed her folks." Tears welled in Lily's eyes as she watched them pour over her work, her chin resting on the table's edge. For the first time, her impossible gift felt like a weapon, not a curse. The vipers, these towering figures of leather and steel, softened, shoulders slumping, eyes misting. One by one they broke, quiet sobs escaping as the sketch peeled back their own layers of pain. Hawk pulled her close, his voice rough. "This changes everything, kid. We're fulfilling a promise, for you, for us." Outside, engines idled, ready for the ride that would challenge their code, pitting loyalty against a town's rotten core. The night deepened, stars emerging like silent witnesses as the iron vipers prepared to draw their line in the sand. The moon hung heavy over Eldridge, casting long shadows that danced like uneasy spirits across the diner's gravel lot. Inside, the iron vipers huddled around the scarred wooden table, the air thick with the aroma of cooling coffee and the faint metallic tang of resolve. Hawk's finger lingered on the napkin sketch, its crude lines now illuminated by a single hanging bulb that swayed gently, as if breathing with the weight of revelation. Lily sat perched on a stool, her feet dangling, eyes wide as she absorbed the gravity of the moment. The bikers, 50 souls forged in fire and forgotten wars, leaned in, their faces a mosaic of flickering light and hidden scars. Marcus wiped his eyes with the back of his hand, the medic's steady touch betraying a tremor. "This ain't coincidence, Hawk. That warehouse fire. It lines up with the reports I dug up. Arson cover-up, plain as the ink on my arm." Hawk nodded slowly, the scar on his jaw catching the light like a silver thread pulled taut. He'd seen corruption before, in the dusty barracks of distant conflicts, where orders twisted into betrayals that left good men in graves. But this was home soil, a poison seeping into the cracks of a town that should have been a sanctuary. The developers, a shadowy outfit called Frontier Holdings, had been snapping up land along the old rail lines, promising progress but delivering evictions and silenced voices. Lily's parents, simple folk running a small repair shop, had stood in their way, refusing to sell, whispering about bribes and threats. The fire had erased them, leaving only embers and a girl who drew truths no one else could see. "We ride for justice," Hawk said, his voice a low rumble that echoed the engines outside. "Not vengeance, but if that sheriff's badge is bought, we'll peel back the lies ourselves." Lena, her navigator's map tattoo peeking from her sleeve, traced a route on a crumpled town sketch. She'd navigated more than roads, escaping her own past as a nurse who'd turned whistleblower on a hospital scandal, only to find the system closing ranks. "The clinic's my inn," she murmured, her eyes sharp as desert hawks. "That nurse I talked to, she's scared, but she knows things. Says the sheriff's deputy was first on scene that night, logged the fire as faulty wiring, but the embers smelled of accelerant to anyone with a nose." The group murmured assent, the sound like gravel under tires. Lily shifted, her shoulder brushing Hawk's arm, a silent anchor in the storm. For her, this wasn't abstract. It was the shadows that had stolen her world, the arguments she'd overheard about debts and final warnings. As the clock ticked past midnight, the vipers split into shadows of action. Hawk stayed with Lily, guiding her to a quiet corner where Clara had set up a makeshift bed from quilts that smelled of sun-dried cotton. "Rest easy, kid," he said, kneeling to her level, his leather creaking softly. She looked up, her gaze holding the innocence of one who'd learned too early that promises could burn. "Will you draw more? For them?" Hawk's chest tightened. Her gift wasn't just lines on paper. It was a bridge to the buried parts of him, the vow to his lost daughter that echoed in every mile he'd ridden since. "Yeah, show us what you see. It'll light the way." He left her with a sketch pad and pencils adapted for her grip, her chin dipping determinedly as she began, the soft scratch of graphite, a counterpoint to the night's tension. Outside, Marcus led a trio toward the sheriff's office, their bikes idling low to avoid drawing eyes. The building squatted under sodium lights, its facade cracked like the facade of justice it pretended to uphold. They didn't break in. No, that wasn't their code. Instead, Marcus slipped a forged request through the night drop, pulling public records under the guise of a veterans' inquiry. What they found in the dim glow of a street lamp chilled them. Altered timestamps, a witness statement from Lily's neighbor crossed out, and a memo linking the fire to Frontier's insurance payout. "This is deeper than land grabs," Marcus radioed back, his voice hushed over the static. "The sheriff's wife works for them, conflict of interest, buried under red tape." Lena, meanwhile, met her contact at the clinic's back alley, the air heavy with the scent of antiseptic and fear. The nurse, a wiry woman named Grace with hands calloused from long shifts, handed over a flash drive tremblingly. "I saw the burns on that girl. Chemical accelerant, not house fire. But reporting it? They'd shut us down." Back at the diner, dawn's first blush crept over the horizon, painting the sky in hues of bruised purple and gold. The Vipers reconvened, data pooling like rainwater in the table's grooves. Lily's new drawing lay at the center, a sheriff's star cracked by flames, bikers encircling a child, pulling truths from the ashes. It hit them like a gut punch. Joshua, the quiet mechanic with a prosthetic leg from an IED, buried his face in his hands. Sarah, the club's tough-as-nails enforcer who'd lost a brother to corrupt cops, let out a choked sob. Even Lena, ever the steel spine, blinked back tears, her loyalty cracking open to reveal the raw heart beneath. Hawk stood, the weight of their shared pain forging something unbreakable. "This town's rotting from the inside, but we're the cure. The promise we made to each other, to the lost ones like her." Lily watched, her eyes shining as the bikers rose, clasping shoulders in a circle of ironclad brotherhood. The plan took shape under the rising sun, a dawn ride to the developer's office, not with threats, but with truth. They'd present the evidence, demand a reinvestigation, let the moral weight do the breaking. But as engines fired up, a distant siren wailed. The sheriff's cruiser, lights flashing like false beacons. Word had leaked. The corruption was stirring, ready to strike back. Hawk scooped Lily into the sidecar, her drawing clutched like a shield. "Hold on, darling. We're just getting started." The convoy thundered forward, dust devils swirling in their path. The road ahead a ribbon of reckoning. In that moment, amid the roar and the rising light, Hawk felt the old promise ignite. Not just for his ghosts, but for this armless artist who'd redrawn his world. And now I invite you to leave in the comments where you're watching from and the exact hour you heard this story. We wish to know how far these northern confessions travel and at what moments they reach you. The sheriff's cruiser barreled down the main drag of Eldridge, its sirens slicing through the dawn like a jagged knife, red and blue lights pulsing erratically against the waking town. Dust billowed from its tires, mingling with the first hints of morning mist that clung to the low-lying scrub along the roadside. Hawk's convoy held formation at the diner's edge, engines thrumming low and steady, a counterpoint to the intruding wail. He glanced at Lily in the sidecar, her small face pale but resolute, the latest drawing, a fractured badge encircled by shadowed figures, tucked into the folds of her hoodie. The air carried the sharp bite of dew-kissed asphalt and the faint, acrid echo of last night's coffee grounds from Clara's trash bins. "Stay close, kid," Hawk murmured, his voice barely rising above the growl of his Harley. She nodded, her chin dipping in quiet determination, as if the weight of their shared secrets had already armored her against the storm. Marcus revved his bike beside Hawk, his medic's kit slung across his back like a talisman from forgotten battlefields. The former soldier's eyes narrowed, scanning the approaching cruiser with the precision of a man who'd triumphed over ambushes in sun-baked dunes. "They're blocking the road to the developer's office," he radioed over the club's encrypted channel, static crackling like distant thunder. Lena flanked the other side, her navigator's instincts kicking in as she mapped escape routes in her mind, back alleys snaking behind the hardware store, a dry creek bed that could swallow their thunder. The Vipers tightened ranks, 50 bikes forming an unyielding wall of chrome and leather, their vests emblazoned with the Iron Viper's serpent coiling eternally around a promise of unbreakable bonds. No one flinched. This was their creed, etched deeper than skin: stand for the voiceless, honor the oaths that time couldn't erode. The cruiser skidded to a halt 20 yards out, gravel spraying like shrapnel. Sheriff Harlan Tate stepped from the driver's side, a stocky man in his 50s with a mustache like tangled wire and eyes hardened by years of looking the other way, his uniform strained at the seams, badge glinting falsely under the climbing sun, which now bathed the scene in a warm, unforgiving light. 2 deputies flanked him, hands hovering near holsters, their postures screaming unease. The scent of hot rubber from the cruiser's brakes hung heavy, mixing with the earthy tang of disturbed soil. "Ramirez!" Tate barked, his voice amplified by the cruiser's open-door speaker. Though he didn't need it, the tension amplified everything. "This town's under my jurisdiction. You and your gang clear out now, or I'll have you all in cuffs for disturbing the peace." Hawk killed his engine first, the sudden silence amplifying the sheriff's words like a held breath before a storm. He dismounted with deliberate slowness, boots crunching on the gravel, his 6-foot frame casting a long shadow that swallowed the sidecar. Lily peered out, her scarred shoulders tensing, but Hawk placed a gentle hand on the rig's edge, a silent vow passing between them. The other Vipers followed suit, engines fading to murmurs, the air now alive with the subtle creak of leather and the distant call of a lone crow wheeling overhead. "Sheriff," Hawk replied, his tone even, gravelly from years of wind-whipped shouts over highways. "We're not here for trouble, just truth. That girl in the sidecar, her folks burned in a fire you called an accident. We've got reason to believe otherwise. Evidence that points to your office turning a blind eye." Tate's face twisted, a flicker of something, guilt, calculation. Crossing his features before the mask of authority snapped back, he glanced at Lily, his gaze lingering on her stubs a beat too long, then away, as if the sight burned. "Kid's got no place in grown folks' business. Hand her over to social services and ride on. Frontier Holdings is bringing jobs, progress. You bikers stir up old ghosts. You'll regret it." The deputies shifted, one muttering into his radio, but the Vipers held ground, their presence a living testament to loyalty, forged in loss. Joshua, the mechanic with the prosthetic leg, gripped his handlebars tighter, memories of his own brother's frame-up by crooked badges fueling a quiet fire in his chest. Sarah beside him cracked her knuckles softly, her enforcer's build belying the nurse's heart that had mended more club wounds than she'd caused. From the sidecar, Lily's voice cut through, small but steady, carried on the breeze that rustled the nearby mesquite trees. "I drew it," she said, holding up the napkin sketch with her teeth, maneuvering it carefully onto the rig's lip. The lines caught the light. The sheriff's star splintering under flames, bikers as silhouettes of salvation. Tate stepped closer, compelled despite himself, his boots scuffing the dirt. The drawing's raw power hit like a desert gust. Impossible for armless hands, yet there it was, a child's vision piercing the veil of lies. His mustache twitched, color draining from his face as recognition dawned. "That's... how?" he whispered, the word slipping out before he could cage it. Hawk watched, the moment stretching like taffy, the sun's rays now gilding the edges of the paper, turning it into something sacred. The sheriff's hand trembled as he reached for it, but Lena intercepted, snatching the sketch with viper-quick reflexes. "Not so fast," she said, her voice laced with the steel of her whistleblower days. "This isn't just pretty lines. It matches the reports. Chemical burns, not wiring. Your deputy logged it wrong, and your wife's payroll from Frontier says why." The words landed like punches, the air thickening with unspoken accusations. Tate's deputies exchanged uneasy glances, one backing toward the cruiser, the scent of his sweat cutting through the morning freshness. Marcus stepped forward, pulling the flash drive from his pocket, holding it like evidence from a battlefield autopsy. "We've got time stamps. Witness ghosts you buried. Reinvestigate or we take this to the state. Let the real light shine on your shadows." Tate's bluster cracked then, his shoulders sagging under the weight of exposed rot. He looked at Lily again, really looked, seeing not a freak but a survivor whose art had unraveled his complicity. The vipers sensed the shift, a collective exhale rippling through them like wind over dunes. But redemption wasn't instant. Hawk knew that from his own scarred soul, the promise to his daughter a daily grind against regret. "Walk away clean, Sheriff," Hawk offered, his voice softening just enough. "Help us write this. For her." Tate hesitated, the siren's echo fading into silence, replaced by the soft coo of pigeons scattering from the diner's roof. In that suspended beat, Lily began another sketch in the sidecar, her chin guiding the pencil with fierce focus, capturing the standoff in hurried strokes, bikers as a shield, the lawman at a crossroads. The act drew eyes, pulling even the deputies in, their hardness melting into reluctant awe. Joshua wiped his brow, a tear tracing his cheek. Sarah's breath hitched, the drawing echoing her brother's unjust end. Hawk felt it too, the old vow resurfacing, binding him tighter to this chosen family. As Tate finally nodded, turning back to his cruiser with a muttered, "I'll look into it," the convoy stirred to life once more. Engines roared back, a symphony of resolve, carrying them toward the developer's office, where deeper truths awaited. The road unfurled ahead, shimmering in the heat, promising trials that would test their iron more than any flame. Lily's eyes met Hawk's, a spark of trust igniting as the dust rose like a veil, lifting on justice long denied. The convoy surged forward, a steel serpent carving through Eldridge's sun-baked veins, the asphalt humming beneath tires worn smooth by countless oaths kept. Hawk led the charge, his Harley purring like a faithful hound, the sidecar's frame rattling softly with Lily's every breath. The morning air whipped past, carrying the dry scent of creosote bushes and sun-warmed earth, while the sun climbed higher, turning the horizon into a shimmering mirage of half-buried truths. Behind them, the sheriff's cruiser faded into the rear view, its lights no longer a threat, but a reluctant ally, Tate's nod hanging in the air like a fragile truce. The Vipers rode tight, their engines a unified growl that drowned out the town's awakening murmurs, shopkeepers peering from windows, children pausing mid-play to gawk at the leather-clad procession. This wasn't invasion, it was arrival, a promise etched in exhaust and resolve, pulling the shadows of corruption into the light. Frontier Holdings' office squatted at the town's frayed edge, a modern glass and steel box plunked amid weathered clapboard relics, its facade reflecting the convoy like a distorted mirror. The building's parking lot was empty save for a lone SUV, polished to arrogance, and the faint whir of an air conditioner humming against the encroaching heat. Hawk signaled a halt at the perimeter fence, the chain link rattling under gloved hands as the bikes formed a semicircle, engines idling to a low rumble that vibrated through the ground like an unspoken warning. Lily clutched the sidecar's edge with her shoulder, her eyes scanning the structure with the intensity of an artist framing her next canvas. The scent of fresh-cut gravel mingled with the oily tang from the building's vents, a sterile contrast to the wild pulse of the road. "This is it," Hawk said, dismounting and helping her down, his calloused palm steady against her back. "The place where it all started burning." Marcus and Lena flanked him, the flash drive and napkin sketches bundled in a worn saddlebag like artifacts from a moral crusade. The rest of the Vipers held position, a vigilant ring. Joshua polishing his prosthetic with a rag, his mechanic's mind already dissecting the locks. Sarah scanning for cameras, her enforcer's vigilance softened by the day's growing purpose. They'd come not as marauders, but as bearers of light. The Iron Viper's creed demanding truth over fists, loyalty over law's hollow shell. Inside, through the tinted glass, shadows moved. Suited figures pausing mid-stride, phones lifting to lips as the unexpected thunder outside registered. Hawk pushed open the lobby door, a chime tinkling like false welcome, the cool blast of conditioned air carrying hints of expensive cologne and printer ink. Lily walked beside him, her steps measured, chin held high as if the building's chill couldn't touch her fire-forged spirit. The receptionist, a young woman named Olivia with neatly pinned hair and a nameplate gleaming under fluorescent lights, froze at her desk, her fingers hovering over a keyboard. "Can I help you?" she stammered, eyes widening at the influx, Hawk's towering frame, Marcus's quiet intensity, Lena's sharp gaze. Lily lingered by the door, her presence a silent statement, the stubs of her arms hidden but not forgotten. Hawk placed the saddlebag on the counter with deliberate care, the zipper's rasp echoing in the hushed space. "We're here about a fire. 5 years back, a warehouse on the east side. Belonged to the Thompsons, Lily's folks." He nodded toward the girl, who met Olivia's gaze without flinching, a spark of defiance in her eyes that spoke volumes. The receptionist's composure cracked, color rising as recognition dawned. Whispers of the armless orphan had circulated through Eldridge's gossip vines like desert wind. From a back office, Victor Lang emerged, the head of Frontier Holdings, a sleek man in his 40s, tailored suit hugging a frame honed by gym memberships and boardroom battles. His smile was practiced, teeth flashing white against the lobby's sterile glow, but his eyes darted to the window where bikes gleamed like accusations. The air shifted with his approach, carrying the subtle spice of aftershave, masking unease. "Mr. Ramirez, I presume?" Sheriff Tate called ahead. "Something about old business?" Lang's voice was smooth, oiled by deals that bent rules, but Hawk caught the flicker, the calculation behind the charm. Lena stepped forward, sliding the flash drive across the desk. "Old business that smells like arson. Your company's land push, insurance windfalls, and a little girl's life in the ashes. We've got records, timestamps, witness notes you buried, and this." She unfolded Lily's drawing, the cracked star and encircling riders laid bare under the lights, lines raw and prophetic. Lang's facade slipped, his hand pausing mid-reach, fingers trembling as he traced the sketch's flames. It wasn't just paper, it was a mirror to his compromises, the late-night meetings with Tate, the accidental blaze that cleared the way for expansion. Lily moved closer, her shoulder brushing the desk, and in a fluid motion born of necessity, she nudged a company pen with her chin, beginning to sketch on a blank notepad. The lobby held its breath, the soft scrape of graphite amplifying in the silence, her lines emerging, a suited shadow igniting a match, a child's silhouette rising from embers. Olivia gasped, hand to mouth. Even Lang leaned in, transfixed, the impossible grace unraveling his denial. "How?" he whispered, echoing Tate's earlier fracture. The drawing piercing the armor of profit and power, Outside, the Vipers sensed the tension through the glass, engines revving softly in solidarity, the sun now beating down like a judge's gavel. Marcus radioed a quiet update, his voice steady over the link. "He's braking, but watch the flanks. Backup could roll in." Joshua nodded, his prosthetic clicking as he adjusted his stance. Memories of rigged contracts from his army days fueling a protective fire. Sarah's eyes misted, the scene inside echoing her own losses to corporate greed. Her brother's shop foreclosed under false pretenses. Back in the lobby, Hawk's voice cut through, low and unyielding. "This ends today, Lang. Reinstate the investigation, full, clean. Pay for her care, her future. Or we ride this truth to every paper, every ear that listens. Our promise isn't for sale." Lang sank into a chair, the fight draining like sand through fingers, his gaze locking on Lily's emerging art, a phoenix of bikes from flames, symbolizing redemption's hard-won flight. Tears welled unbidden as the weight of his choices crashed down, the lobby's cool air turning heavy with confession. "It was a mistake," he admitted, voice cracking, pressure from above. "But the girl, she shouldn't have paid." Olivia nodded, stepping forward with a keycard to the files room, her own complicity yielding to the moral tide. Lily finished her sketch, holding it up triumphantly, the act sealing the moment like a vow renewed. As the evidence poured out, documents confirming bribes, accelerant receipts hidden in ledgers, the Vipers entered en masse, their presence transforming the space from fortress to confessional. Quiet sobs broke the air, Joshua clasping Lang's shoulder in unexpected forgiveness, Sarah whispering encouragements to Olivia, whose hands shook with relief. Hawk knelt by Lily, pride swelling in his chest, the old promise to his daughter intertwining with this new bond. "You did it, kid. Drew the line they couldn't cross." The sun filtered through the windows now, casting golden pools on the floor, illuminating paths forward. But as papers signed and calls made to state investigators, a distant rumble echoed, not engines, but thunderheads gathering on the horizon, hinting at storms yet to break. The road to full justice twisted ahead, testing their iron bonds, but in that lobby, amid the hush of breaking walls, the family chosen stood unbreakable. If this chapter moved you, smash that like button. It helped spread these stories of quiet courage far and wide. The thunderheads rolled in from the west like uninvited spectres, their dark underbellies swallowing the sun's defiant glow and casting Eldridge in a twilight of bruised greys. The air grew heavy, laced with the electric tang of impending rain and the faint ozone-sharp bite of ozone, as if the sky itself mirrored the storm, brewing in the souls gathered outside Frontier Holdings. Hawk's convoy idled in the lot, engines purring softly now, a restrained symphony that vibrated through the chain-link fence and into the bones of every Viper. Lily sat in the sidecar, her latest sketch, a phoenix of intertwined serpents rising from shattered glass, clutched gently against her chest, the paper crinkling with each breath. The scent of wet earth rose from the parched ground, mingling with the cooling exhaust, as drops began to patter, like hesitant confessions on the gravel. Inside the lobby, the confessions had spilled like a dam breaking. Victor Lang's voice hoarse from the weight of years unspoken. Documents lay scattered across the reception desk like fallen leaves, illuminated by the harsh fluorescence that buzzed overhead, casting stark shadows on faces etched with relief and regret. Olivia, the receptionist, had unlocked the secure files, her hands trembling as she handed over ledgers detailing the bribes funneled to Sheriff Tate, payments disguised as consulting fees tied to the warehouse fire that had claimed Lily's world. Hawk stood sentinel by the window, his broad back to the glass, watching the rain intensify, sheets of it blurring the view of his brothers and sisters outside. Marcus pored over the papers, his medic's precision noting every discrepancy. Accelerant purchases logged as Cleaning supplies, witness payoffs routed through shell accounts. Lena coordinated with state investigators over a secure line, her voice steady as she relayed the evidence, the navigator in her charting a course from corruption to clarity. But redemption's path was never straight. Hawk felt it in the tightening of his scar, a phantom pull from old wounds. Lang slumped in his chair, the tailored suit now rumpled, his eyes hollow as he glanced at Lily. "I thought it was just business," he murmured, the words tasting of ash. "Push the holdouts, clear the land." But that night, the match was struck on orders. I didn't pull the trigger, but I loaded the gun. Lily met his gaze, her expression a mix of child's forgiveness and survivor's steel, the stubs of her arms a silent testament to the cost. She nudged the notepad closer with her shoulder, adding a final stroke to her phoenix, a small figure at its heart, arms outstretched in ethereal wings. The act drew a choked sound from Lang, tears carving paths down his cheeks, mirroring the rain streaking the windows. Outside, the vipers weathered the downpour, rain sheeting off leather vests and pooling in chrome accents that gleamed dully under the storm's veil. Joshua leaned against his bike, prosthetic leg planted firm in the mud, his mechanic's hands idly tracing the serpent emblem on his tank. The downpour soaked through, but it washed away the grime of doubt, leaving a raw clarity. "This rain's cleansing," he said to Sarah beside him, water dripping from her short-cropped hair. She nodded, her enforcer's frame unbowed, but her eyes softened with the memory of her brother's foreclosure, a corporate blade disguised as progress. Yeah, like Lily's drawings, cuts through the lies. The club had broken earlier in the diner, sobs racking these iron-hard warriors as her art peeled back their scars. Now, in the storm, that vulnerability forged them stronger, a family chosen in the crucible of shared pain, bound by promises that rain couldn't erode. As the state team arrived, two sedans splashing through puddles, lights cutting fog like beacons, Hawk emerged with Lily in his arms, her slight weight a anchor against the gale. The investigators, stern-faced agents in rain-slicked coats, met them under the overhang, notebooks at the ready. Lang followed, flanked by Olivia, his confessions spilling anew under the relentless patter. "It starts with the land," he said, voice rising over the thunder. "Frontier needed that warehouse site for the rail extension. The Thompsons wouldn't budge, talked of going public with the threats, so we arranged the fire. Tate covered it, his wife on our payroll to keep the reports clean." The lead agent nodded, jotting notes. The pen scratched a counterpoint to the storm's roar. Lily, set down gently, began sketching on a damp napkin from Hawk's pocket, her chin guiding it with unyielding focus, flames twisting into chains, broken by rider silhouettes. The evidence mounted, a torrent matching the skies, digital trails from the flash drive, physical ledgers stamped with Frontier's seal, even a hidden video from Olivia's phone showing a late-night delivery of chemicals to the warehouse. Tate arrived soon after, cruiser hydroplaning to a stop, his mustache drooping under the wet. No bluster now. The sheriff's shoulders sagged as he faced the agents, Lang's testimony hanging like a noose. "I looked away for the town," he admitted, rain mingling with the sheen on his face. "Jobs, growth, but not at that price." Hawk watched from the sidelines, Lily's drawing complete in his hand, a moral compass pointing true north. The vipers gathered closer, their presence a silent jury, loyalty radiating like heat from cooling engines. Yet, as arrests loomed and the storm peaked in a crack of lightning that split the sky, a shadow lingered. One of Lang's associates, a slick lawyer named Harlan, who'd slipped the net, gunned his SUV from a side exit, tires spinning mud as he fled toward the county line. The vipers spotted it first, engines firing in unison, the rain turning their pursuit into a blurred charge through sheets of water. Hawk mounted up, Lily secured once more, her eyes alight with the thrill of unfinished justice. "He's got proof. The real orders. Hidden off-sight, Lena shouted over the comms, her bike surging ahead. Marcus flanked right, Joshua left, the convoy a watery arrow piercing the tempest. The chase wound through Eldridge's backroads, wipers slashing frantically, headlights piercing veils of rain like accusations. Harlan's SUV fishtailed on a curve, the scent of burning brakes cutting through the deluge. But he pushed on, desperation fueling his flight. Hawk's mind raced with the old vow, to his daughter, to his captain, now to this girl whose art had reignited his purpose. "We end this clean," he radioed, voice steady amid the chaos. Lightning illuminated the road ahead, revealing a washed-out bridge looming like fate's final test. Harlan braked too late, the SUV skidding toward the edge, but Joshua veered in, bumper clipping just enough to spin him into a ditch, safe from the drop. As agents swarmed the wreck, securing the hidden drive with the smoking gun emails, the rain eased to a drizzle, stars peeking through rifts in the clouds. Lily's drawing, sodden but unbroken, fluttered in the wind, a promise fulfilled, chains shattered. Hawk pulled her close. The club's sobs from earlier now echoes of triumph, their iron bonds gleaming wet and unyielding, but whispers from the agents hinted at deeper roots. Frontiers ties to bigger players, shadows that might ride back. The road to full redemption stretched on, demanding one more stand. In the clearing air, scented with petrichor and possibility, the Vipers revved toward dawn. Family forged anew in storm and silence. The drizzle lingered like a reluctant farewell, pattering softly on the hoods of the state agents' sedans as they cordoned off the ditch where Harlan's SUV lay tilted, its engine ticking in defeat. The air hummed with the aftermath, petrichor rising sharp from the soaked earth, mingling with the metallic tang of scorched brakes and the faint, oily residue of rain-slicked chrome. Hawk dismounted first, his boots sinking into the mud with a wet squelch, the weight of Lily in the sidecar pulling him back like an unbreakable tether. She peered out, her face streaked with water but eyes alight, the sodden drawing clutched in her teeth, a phoenix now frayed at the edges, yet its lines held firm, symbolizing the truths they'd clawed from the storm. The Vipers encircled the scene, engines off, their leather vests darkening under the clearing sky, breaths visible in the cooling air as stars began to reclaim the heavens. Agents swarmed the vehicle, gloved hands extracting the hidden drive from Harlan's glove compartment, its surface beaded with droplets like unshed tears. The lawyer himself slumped against the door, dazed but unharmed, his silk tie askew and suit plastered to his frame, the arrogance washed away by the downpour. It was all there, he muttered to the lead investigator, a no-nonsense woman named Rebecca, with rain-dampened hair pinned back and a notebook that fluttered in the breeze. Emails, directives from the board, Frontiers not alone, bigger fish in the city, pulling strings for rail monopolies. Her pen scratched furiously, the sound a quiet victory amid the night's hush, as Marcus handed over his own compiled evidence, the flash drive from the clinic slotting into the puzzle like a missing gear. Lena stood nearby, her navigator's map tattoo glistening, coordinating details with a radio crackle that echoed the club's unbreakable link. Hawk knelt by the sidecar, his scarred hand gentle as he helped Lily out, her small feet touching the mud for the first time that night. The ground yielded softly, a far cry from the unyielding asphalt of their rides, and she balanced with instinctive grace, shoulder pressing against his leg for support. The scent of her, clean rain on hoodie fabric mixed with the faint graphite from her sketches, grounded him, chasing away the ghosts that had ridden shotgun for too long. "You all right, darling?" he asked, voice roughened by the wind and emotion. She nodded, chin lifting to meet his eyes, a spark of the artist who'd redrawn their fates shining through the exhaustion. "We got them all now," she whispered, the words carrying the weight of a child's unscarred hope. But Hawk knew justice's road forked endlessly. The deeper shadows, Harlan confessed to, hinted at trials beyond Eldridge, a web that might ensnare the innocent again. Back at the diner's lot, now transformed into a makeshift command post under strung-up tarps that snapped in the wind, the Vipers gathered as dawn broke fully, painting the horizon in strokes of rose and amber. Clara bustled with hot coffee, steam rising like prayers from mugs clutched in calloused hands, the aroma cutting through the damp chill. Sheriff Tate arrived under escort, his cruiser mud-spattered, face gaunt as he faced the group. No cuffs yet. The agents allowed a moment for amends. Rebecca's nod a bridge to redemption. Tate's eyes found Lily first, lingering on her with the remorse of a man seeing his failures embodied. "I failed you, kid," he said, voice cracking over the drip of residual rain from the eaves. "Took the easy path for the greater good. But seeing that drawing, it showed me the monster I let in." Lily tilted her head, considering, then nudged a fresh napkin toward him with her foot, pencil in mouth, sketching a simple line, a badge mending under sunlight. The act broke him fully, tears mingling with the last drops on his mustache, and he knelt, confessing the rest. How Frontier's city backers had leaned on him, promising re-election funds in exchange for buried reports. Olivia from the office joined them, her keycard now a key to unlocked files, detailing every payout and threat. Lang arrived last, driven by agents, his confession expanding the net. Board meetings where the fire was green-lit as necessary relocation. Insurance claims that funded Lily's orphaned limbo. The Vipers listened, a circle of silent sentinels, Joshua's prosthetic clicking softly as he shifted, Sarah's hand resting on Lena's shoulder, Marcus bandaging a minor scrape from the chase with medic's care. Their earlier sobs in the diner had been the cracking. This was the forging, loyalty tempered into something eternal, a family chosen not by blood, but by the fire of standing firm. As the sun crested, gilding the bikes in liquid gold, Rebecca outlined the path forward, arrests cascading upward, Lily's case reopened with full support, therapy, education, a trust from seized assets to nurture her gift. "She'll have guardians," the agent said, glancing at Hawk. "Real ones." He nodded, the vow to his lost daughter resonating in the moment, fulfilled through this armless visionary who'd drawn light from his darkness. Lily's final sketch emerged on the diner table. The convoy as a constellation, stars linking scarred souls, flames distant now, mere embers of memory. The club gathered around it, quiet sniffles turning to shared smiles, the emotional dam holding as purpose bloomed. By midday, with the storm fully past and skies a vast blue canvas, the Vipers prepared to ride. Lily mounted the sidecar permanently, her future woven into their ranks, art supplies strapped beside her, a custom rig for drawing on the go. Hawk revved his engine last, the familiar rumble vibrating through them like a heartbeat renewed. "This isn't goodbye to the fight," he called over the roar, eyes on the horizon where city shadows loomed. "But we've honored the promise, for her, for all the broken ones." Erdine, the convoy thundered out, dust devils swirling in their wake, a serpent of iron and hope carving toward whatever came next. Eldridge receded, smaller now, its rot exposed to healing light. In the sidecar, Lily sketched the road ahead, her lines a testament to redemption's quiet power, binding the chosen family in unbreakable serpents of loyalty and light. Thank you for riding this journey with us to the end. If Lily's story of impossible courage touched your soul, hit that subscribe button and join our crew. Let's keep these tales of honor and heart rolling together.